the question I think becomes, okay, this is George Pickens as the number one, but can he do what he is doing currently as a number two when CeeDee Lamb is on the football field? Is that even possible?
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, no, I don't think he will be third in the NFL in receiving yards when CeeDee Lamb is on the field, right? He has 525 right now as we head into Monday Night Football this evening, and he is third among wide receivers in receiving yards. I don't think that George Pickens will finish the NFL season with third in receiving yards if CeeDee Lamb is healthy and out there the rest of the way. But can he make some of the same plays and make the same impact on the Cowboys offense that he has done so far? Yes, I think so, because they actually have not really changed his role at all since CeeDee Lamb has gone out there. Part of my wondering, like, can he step up and be the wide receiver one for this team, was like, well, are they gonna use him any differently? Because I thought he can't really do that if he is still just playing as the X receiver. He took 20% of his snaps from the slot in this past game against Carolina, and I actually think there were some interesting ways in which they weaponized him in the slot to get him away from J.C. Horn on the outside, get him lined up on some of the lesser guys on the inside. But in the game against the Packers, just 3.3% snaps in the slot, 4.3 against the New York Jets. He was, for the most part, has still just been a primary X receiver. But so there's been no real change in his role. It's just the allocation of targets and how they've gone to him in more critical moments. But you also have to remember, like, George Pickens, this offense, and Dak Prescott are still getting to know each other, right? Like, they're now just finding out what George Pickens can do. And there's going to be, I think, a little bit of a can't put the genie back in the bottle type situation here, where they know how effective he can be on some of these routes, and they're going to keep going to him. The one thing I think is that has been difference between his time in Pittsburgh and what he's done so far in Dallas. I've charted a couple of games for him. Mm-hmm. And he's run a dig route on 20% of the routes I've charted, which is way up. We've talked about this for years with Pittsburgh, where he almost never really ran in-breaking routes over the middle of the field. And he's been excellent on those routes. And Dak has been hyper targeting him on those plays. So while he is still running a healthy amount of go routes, which is going to make his production volatile when CeeDee Lamb is there, the fact that he's also running some of these routes over the middle of the field, more like primary routes, I think that's encouraging for when he gets back. So, yeah, do I expect him to be third in the NFL in receiving yards with CeeDee Lamb? No, but I don't think anybody will really expect that.
So maybe not the total counting stats, but just in terms of just the effectiveness, right? Like the efficiency. Again, I think for me, the efficiency is really sticking out over the last 3 weeks. 73% catch rate for George Pickens in the role that he's running in is absurd. Again, on the season, he's played 90% of his snaps out wide. These kind of splits, you don't see a 73% catch rate for a guy that's playing 90% out wide. That doesn't happen in the NFL, because, again, these are some tough routes and in sometimes low percentage throws. And I don't think George Pickens has ever been that hyper efficient guy, right? He likes to make splash plays. Splash plays are we call them 50-50 balls for a reason. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess that's more of my question of, like, when CeeDee Lamb comes back, can he still stay this engaged? I think for me, Matt, when I look at George Pickens, I see a player that has to have the environment correct. He has to be utilized early and often. Like, he has to see the football come to him for him to be engaged for the entirety of the game. He has to have a pretty good quarterback. And again, they have to put him in situations where he can succeed and be that dude. I think you made a point. I think it was you that talked about how he kind of sort of likes it when it's combative, you know? And ever since you said that, when I go watch George Pickens play, I think you're 100% right. I think he likes it when he's a little bit combative. So I think that's why when he's out on the outside, just fighting these DBs or whatever, again, he's mentally engaged into the whole process. So again, when I see Pickens, man, I see a player that has all the talent in the world, but you got to get him engaged in the football game. And that's obviously something that was very spotty while he was at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's where I think that this is a sort of can't put the genie back in the bottle type situation here with George Pickens. The fact that they have seen him operate at this level, I think they are going to continue to feed into that. So yeah, the raw production might not be there, but I think the efficiency can keep up. There's always going to just be some variance with catch rate and some of these stats, where he has a game where it's just a couple of targets are out of reach or whatever. Maybe he has a couple drops here or there. It's going to happen. It happens to every wide receiver. We were just talking about that with Devontae Adams in the previous segment. Devontae Adams has 4 drops on the year. These things are going to happen to some of these wide receivers, but for the most part, I do think they know the right buttons to push with Pittsburgh or with George Pickens, where they're getting him in more of these man coverage situations. It is X receiver routes against press on the outside, critical to keeping him engaged, critical to keeping him part of the process. So I think they know the player a little bit better now. That's my feeling over the last 3 weeks is they know the player a little bit better now. And him and Dak are just such a great fit for each other because Dak is one of those guys that will rifle the ball over the middle of the field and work the middle, put it in tight windows. He loves to test those tight windows, put it in tight windows, have faith in his guys to go and get it. And he'll work that critical intermediate, deep middle of the field area. But he is also very willing to go to the boundary, to play hard football and target these outside routes, the outbreakers, the stop routes, the go routes. And those are routes that George Pickens has run at a high volume and been very effective on, not just this year, but dating back to his time in Pittsburgh. So I definitely think that from a production standpoint, they're going to keep going to Pickens. They're going to keep feeding into him. My question is actually less about the rest of the season and more about the future for George Pickens. He's on the last year of his contract. Of course, we know that. Far be it from me to come in here and tell another man to do what with his life and his money and whatever. Because let me tell you what, if George Pickens continues to have the year like this and he walks into free agency, some team that is desperate for even if he's not a wide receiver one, like a T Higgins potential wide. I mean, Pickens is had a better year than T Higgins. Obviously, T Higgins is of course dealing with quarterback issues, but he's in that. We've talked about him in that tier of the number 2 wide receivers that you can get away with being a number 1. He's putting this stretch on the field right now. He walks into free agency, he's going to get paid by some team that's desperate for wide receiver help. Oh yeah, but damn man. Sometimes the grass is not always greener on the other side. And you're George Pickens, you actually know what it looks like to be the wide receiver one, quote unquote, for some, trash can offense that's rotating quarterbacks around. If I'm George Pickens, I'm trying to stay in Dallas. I'm trying to stay as Dak Prescott's quote number 2 receiver, whatever, because you see what the benefits you can reap from that. I just think these two guys are perfect together. That's what I'd be trying to do if I was George Pickens. But number 1, I want your thoughts on that. And number 2, if you're invested in Pickens from a dynasty perspective or whatever, would you rather see him go somewhere and be the hypothetical number 1, or would you rather him stick in this environment?
I think if you're talking pure fantasy, you got to go and test the waters in free agency. Again, if you're a Pickens dynasty guy, man, you got to go see him as a number 1 somewhere. Because even as an inefficient number 1, I think barring Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh, there's some places where it would just be an absolute disaster. Okay.
Well, you're not going back there is my guess.
Yeah, exactly. But again, in fantasy, you got to see him be a number 1 somewhere and just get all that target share and air yards and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, that being said, man, if I'm Pickens, there's only one place I want to go, and that's New England. Go team up with Drake May. Go get me. You got functional coaching there now. Right, you've got a young ascending quarterback and a young ascending quarterback in a rookie contract, so they can still pay. Right, to me, they don't have anybody who is a true number 1. Stephon Diggs is going to be a year older next year. It's a great spot for him if he can end up in New England. So that would be, if I'm George Pickens, I'm part of his management team. I'm let me get all the chips moving towards New England and see what we can do.
Interesting. Look, Drake May looks incredible right now.
Yeah, he looks awesome.
I'll say they're getting pretty good play out of Kayshon Boutte as that X receiver and sort of the George Pickens archetype. I think Pickens random. I do think Pickens is a superior player, but I think that,
Yeah.
and look, Kayshon Boutte has been the definition of up and down, where he has this great week one, then you don't like, he doesn't, I don't think he's had 50 yards since then. Maybe he's been close, but then he obviously has this 2 touchdown, 90-yard game in week 6. But Kayshon Boutte's been perfectly good in that sort of vertical X receiver role. And sometimes the ball finds him and sometimes the ball doesn't, which, by the way, George Pickens, I don't know about that. But yeah, so I think that they're getting, but Boutte's a free agent at the end of the year. So, I mean, it's definitely possible that Pickens could fit in and maybe even be an upgrade on that spot. I will just say, though, again, the grass is not always greener. The grass is not always greener. Yes, theoretically, going to New England, I don't know if I think Mike Vrabel and George Pickens would see eye to eye on a lot of things. So then, okay, great. You're just now, where are you? Where are you going in free agency? I maybe you want to go to New York and be playing with Jackson Dart. They need wide receiver help, but I mean, for me, if I'm Pickens, I'm like, put the contract in front of me right now. I'll sign it. I want to stay in Dallas, because sometimes these guys, they're just perfectly, like, the team knows them. The quarterback's perfect for them.
Yep.
I actually think if I would take the other side of it, if I was a dynasty bro and I had George Pickens, I'd actually want him to stick in Dallas. And yes, you might be shaving off some target share, but you're also getting a lot of certainty there into what he is and how he looks with this quarterback in this offense. And so far, I realize the last 3 games have been without CeeDee Lamb, but so far that's looking pretty sweet.